You know how you read all these finance books like I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Broke Millennial, Financial Freedom, or even Your Money or Your Life? And you set up all these fancy accounts like Vanguard or Capital One or Charles Schwab or even Fidelity. Well, it's super easy for these things to get really, really messy because you don't have one hub or one location where you can see all your account balances on all your accounts, so you have no idea what your total net worth is. Well, that's what we're fixing today. And I know there's probably some fancy paid app that does this for you where you connect all your accounts and you can look at it, but I am so burned out on paid subscriptions right now. So we're gonna do it for free in Notion. And I know you could probably do it for free using Excel, but Notion graphs are a lot easier to use. And also you'd have to save the Excel file and then send it to yourself if you want to use it on another computer, and you also can't really manage it through your phone very well. So that's why I think Notion is the better free version to build this on. And no, it's not going to be like a bunch of lists and Kanban boards and gallery views and links throughout Notion. Every time I watch these Notion budget tracker videos or anything money related, it is so overly complicated. I'm like looking at it and they'll have dashboards that are linking to each other, all kinds of stuff. We are going to make just one database with just a couple of views. That's it, one database. We're not going to be doing anything crazy. And this is what I use to track all my accounts personally. And for reference, I am a data science manager at Intel. So this will come from more of a data perspective on how you should be setting up your data in a database in Notion. This video is going to be broken up into 3 different parts. The first part will be actually building the database, so building out the properties, the columns, the rows, all that. And then the next part will be the charts, so how to do the dashboards / visuals. They're just a view of the database. So we're not gonna be linking it to some other page within Notion. And then lastly, we'll go over filters, sorting, that kind of stuff that I use to analyze the data after I have it all in that database. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I have up here, I have Notion, right? I have the desktop version. You can do this in the actual cloud version, which is on the internet, but I personally like the desktop version. I install it in all my computers. So this is what I have set up. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to this private section and you're gonna press add a page. So we're gonna build it from scratch, okay? And you're gonna click this like ... button, and you're actually gonna click table, because I don't want this to be a page where I embed tables. I feel like that's where people go wrong when they start building stuff in Notion, is they start embedding things within a page. No, you just want one database, there's no page in here, and then it's really easy to keep track of and you don't have to click anywhere to get to it. Now from here, you're gonna click new table, right? Because we don't have any like existing data, and this is gonna be a lot of manual entry, and we'll talk a little bit about why I think it's okay for a little manual entry, even though I'm like the queen of automation. And we can talk about your options as well. So go ahead and click new table, and then we're gonna give it a name. So I'm just gonna call this net worth tracker YouTube, just because I don't want to get it confused with my other one. And I guess they're 2 different words, who knew? So, and then I would suggest giving it a little icon so that it's pretty. And I usually do the little money icon. And that way when it shows up on your left-hand panel here, it's not like super ugly and weird. Now, the first thing I do is clean it up. Okay, so this column is required. So we're just gonna have to live with it. It's fine, we can hide it. And then I want to delete this one because I don't need this property, and I'm gonna redo everything. So we're gonna start from scratch. So go ahead and delete all the columns that it comes with because we're gonna start from scratch. The first thing we're gonna do is talk about the setup, right? So each row is gonna be an instance of your accounts at a specific time, or an object, if you will. So you wanna keep adding rows as time goes on. You do not wanna keep adding columns. And there's a few books that go into this and the structure of it. Where I see a lot of people go wrong is they start adding the account names as the columns and not as the rows. And that's where graphs don't really work very well, and it's not really how you're supposed to do it. And here's a book that I highly recommend anyone who's into data science. It's literally called Data Science. It's literally called Data Science. It's by the MIT Knowledge series, and he talks about what's the difference between columns and rows, columns, when do you use them, all that kind of stuff. The good rule of thumb when it comes to data science and organizing things is if it has the same type of information, it should be in one column. So money needs to be in one column. You don't want to do it all in one row, right? So it has the same type, So it's gonna be in a column. Same thing with date. And once I fill this out, it'll make a little bit more sense. So the first thing we're gonna do is add our columns, which we're gonna want the type of the account, right? Because it could be Charles Schwab, it could be Vanguard, it could be something else. You want the money in the account, so that's another column. And then you want the date as well. So there's only a couple of properties we need to add. So let's go ahead and add the account type. So we're gonna go in here, click this plus button, and we're going to make this a drop down. And I want it to be a select property because you're not gonna have multi-select because you're not gonna select multiple things. It's just gonna be one account. I'm gonna call this account type. So we're gonna fill out account type. Now you can also add like a little emoji here, so you can come in here and pick out emojis, but we're gonna keep this simple. So that's good enough. I'm gonna click out of it, and then I'm gonna click in here to start adding my account types. So how I like to do it is I just say the name of the account, so whether it's Capital One, so Capital One checking, right? Or you might have Capital One savings, and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill this out, and this will give you an idea of what accounts we're looking at, because we're gonna do savings accounts, investment accounts, 401ks, basically anything where you have money that you could pull out will build your net worth. Okay, so it should look something like this once you have it all filled out, and you can change the colors and whatever, and you can reorder them. So I kind of put all my kind of retirement funds in the same area and kind of color my Robinhood and E-Trade, so investment types, I kind of colored them together. Savings, I all make one color. Checking, I all make one color. And then red is anything that's like debt. So I tried to put everything that you could possibly have: car loans, student loans, credit cards, and you want to do each credit card. Or you can kind of sum them together. I think it's personally easier to just have each individual credit card. So Capital One credit card, Charles Schwab credit card, blah, blah, blah credit card. And I know it's a lot. Like mine's a list, okay? Now, what you're gonna do is you can also reorder these, change the color, all that stuff, but it should be something like this, and then you can just kind of reorder them. Now, to just add a new row, you just click new, right? It's very simple. So this is what's gonna be set up, that this is your first month of checking your accounts. So now we can add other properties. The next property we should add is probably the account balance. So we're gonna go ahead and click this plus. We're going to make this a number. So we can click this number down here. And we do want to make the number format in US dollars, right? So we're gonna go ahead and click US dollars. It's a type, number, US dollars. We wanna see it as a number, not as a ring or a bar or anything. So we're gonna rename this account balance, or I think I just call mine money, but you know, we'll be official and make it cool. And this is where you're gonna enter your dollar amount. So you're gonna go through each of your accounts on the 15th of the month, is what I do, and put your account balance in here. So you can go ahead right now and just fill out your account balances for each one of these. You do have to open up each one individually, right? You could use some sort of API-ish developer thing to automatically pull the account number. I haven't figured out quite to do it because it takes about 15 minutes once a month, which is about 3 hours for the entire year. So it's not enough for me to justify reading a bunch of documentation, building something to automate this process. I know it's a little bit of a hassle, but it's really nice to see your account balances. So you're gonna go ahead, open up all the stuff. You should have some sort of password manager. I use LastPass. So that way you can log in and it's super easy. You don't have to remember passwords. You don't have to reset passwords. You have your password manager that just fills it in, and then you log in. Maybe you do your little text authenticator, and then you just literally grab whatever the number is at the date that you're recording it, and you just dump it in here. And speaking of dates, we do need a date property. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move this over a little bit and then click this plus, and we're gonna add a date field. So again, you're just gonna type date, and here's the type, date. And here it is. There's some, you can change the formatting and all that, but we really don't need anything fancy. So I'm just literally gonna keep it as is. And then you're gonna do like the 15th, right? So, and then if you wanna pull down something, you can just highlight and then press Control D, and it kind of fills it out. It's just like an Excel spreadsheet, essentially. So this is the date of your instance. So when I talk about rows, they are objects, they are instances in time. They are a record, right? This is a property of your record. So one of the properties is your account type. Your other property is your account balance. Your other property is the date that you took the instance of the account. So that's why I kind of was talking a little bit earlier about each column should be a property of your instance or your object. Now there are two more things that I add, and this is optional. I use it mainly for filtering, and it is a drop down month and a drop down year. And that is mainly so that when I go to filter things, it's a little bit easier. And I know people are like, well, why don't you make a formula property that calculates the month and the year off the date? Yes, I have tried that, and I'll show you why it doesn't work. Okay, it works, but it's really, the user interface is like not pretty enough. So I'll show you my way, and then I'll add the formula so you can see the difference. So let's go ahead and add the month and then the year. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna do a select. So these are both gonna be select. So this is gonna be month, and I'm gonna add another one, and this one is gonna be also a select, and I'm gonna call this year. Okay, and so month, this is gonna be September, and then year, 2024, right? And you can change the color, like September to me is more of like a yellow in my mind, because it's like fall. And then the year, whatever. And then again, you're just gonna go Control D, drag, Control D, bam. And this will help because what happens is you're gonna add a new entry and you're gonna do the same thing. It's gonna look exactly the same, and you're gonna have maybe October or a previous month. So for example, if I'm going to add something in October, I'll add a new one and I don't enter anything here, right? The name field is just kind of dead. I just leave it alone. And then I do this checking, add a new one, this capital one, and you're gonna repeat that and then fill it out for your October section. So this would be October. So when October 15th comes around, perfect. Go like that, or you can Control D, you can make it easier. And then this is obviously gonna be 2024. You enter your new values. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is what it's going to look like here. So we have basically all these entries, right? So we have all of September, all of October. And again, I just manually did this because that is how you typically do it. On the 15th of each month, right after you get paid, sometimes I do it the 14th, 13th, whatever. You go in here, enter the value of each account and then the date, and then fill out this extra piece. And this will get you set up so you can slice and dice in any way that you want to see, and then we'll go into graphs. Now, before we dive into graphs, I am going to make the formula ones so I can show you the difference between a drop-down select September, month, whatever year. So that way you can see why I do it this way and I don't do formulas. So if you want a formula, you can go in here and type formula, and we'll just call this a month formula so I know the difference. And you can't have the same column name. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And then in here, I'm gonna copy a formula that I stole from the internet. Really not that complicated. Enter, and bam. So it does the same thing, right? Which is nice. I don't have to do the drop down, but I will say there's a trade-off because the filter is not as pretty, and I'll show you why. So now our data is all here, right? So we're ready to go into the graph section of the video. And that's where we build some donut charts, some bar charts, stuff like that. The few things I want to do to clean it up, I usually move this name far over here where I can't see it. So I just see the account type, and the name, it has to be there because each one of these can be a page if you want it to be. I don't use it that way. I use it just as a database. And then it's supposed to look like this. And there's a reason for this, right? You want your rows to just keep going and going. And you can sort this. So I typically will sort it. So click sort, and I do it by date. And I usually do by descending. That way, when I do add my new account types, right? So I click new, they'll show up at the top so I can see what my current balance is for the month right in the front. But I typically don't look at this view. It's really just to store the data so that way we can only look at the charts. You won't really ever need to look at this unless you want to compare two very specific account types to each other. And I'll show you how to do that in a later section of the video. So now we're going to go ahead and make some charts. Now, some caveats here. the charts, you can only make one for free in Notion. So you gotta pick which one you want. So I'm gonna show you 3 different charts that I use, and then you can choose your favorite and then use that if you want the free one. I also have a pro Notion account because it's one of the only subscriptions I genuinely think I can't live without. So I have unlimited chart access, but you can just pick the one that you like the most. So the first chart we're gonna do is the money per account chart. So this is where it's gonna break down how much money you have in each account. So we're gonna go ahead and click this plus button and we're gonna click chart. And you can see it's already trying to do some sort of weird count thing. So we need to go in here and edit the chart type. So we want this to be a donut for one. It's doing a count, which is not what we want to do. So what I wanna show is the account type. Great, we already got that. I wanna see the account type. But each slice represents what? I want it to represent the actual account balance, and I want the sum. So I'm gonna click that. And so now we have the actual sum of each slice is the sum of each account, which is perfect, right? And I wanna sort from high to low. That makes sense, right? So your 401k is probably gonna be the highest. You can change your colors and there's some other options. I'll link a couple chart videos in the description below if you want to get like really fancy with it. And then give it a name. So this is money per account. So that's really nice. Now you can have your table, and you don't really even need to look at your table. You just have your money per account, and then you can hover over each slice and go, okay, my E-Trade has 29,000. This has 102,000. Great, awesome, whatever you want. And again, these numbers are just completely made up. Now, the filtering. This is where I wanted to show you the slicing and the dicing. So if we click filter, right, you want to filter by each month, right? Because this is total month. I mean, this is combining your months together. So yeah, it's great that it shows you have 102,000 in your 401k. That's not actually your 401k. That's adding the September and October together. So we don't want that. That's why I recommend doing the drop-down month. So that way you can filter. So on the month, you can click September, and there's your September. There's your September. And then you can uncheck that and click October, and it filters it for October. So then you can kind of just filter per month. I also, once you get into the years, you're gonna need a year one. Like you might think you don't need a year one because you're all in 2024, but eventually you have 2025 and it'll get confusing. So these 2 filters will be great. The reason why I didn't do the formula filter thing is I'll show you now. So if you click this and you do the month formula, that one that we made, click that, you have to type in the word. So I have to type in September. I'm not doing that. That's too much work. So that's why I don't use the formulas for filtering. That's why I like the drop downs, because they're just much easier to use and to click on and off, and you can see your account balances. So that's the best setup that you could use. You can also, this is totally going off subject here a little bit, but you can add, I have a year database that I relate to it, and I can show that in another video, but for now, just do the drop down. It's not that hard. It's just one extra click when you fill out your little spreadsheet. Okay, next chart that you can make is the money per account, but not with a donut, now with a bar chart. So what you can do is you can right click on here and you can click duplicate, because it's the same data, so you don't have to do all those other steps. And instead of donut, you just click vertical bar, or if you want horizontal. This is actually kind of cool. Maybe I'll keep it this one. So you can kind of you can play around with the chart types, but this is another one that's nice because it shows, okay, in my 401k I have a lot more, okay, and I have some negatives down here with the student loans and that kind of stuff. And you also do want to rename this, so I would call this money per account bar or something. So you can play around with it, but this is another view that I like. I do the horizontal bars, so this is nice. It really depends. Do you want to see the donut or do you want to see the bar chart? Either way, it's a lot easier than setting this up in Excel, to be honest. It's just so easy. And then again, you're going to want to add your filters as well, because this is showing way too much. Oh yeah, it already filtered it for us because we duplicated it. Oh, even better. So if you don't want to see your filters, you can click this filter and it'll just kind of hide them. So there's 2 charts that you can make. So now on to the third type of chart that I personally use. I'm sure there's a ton of other options, but this is just one that I like to have showing money over time. So if I click this and do new chart, I'm gonna go into the settings. I'm gonna call this money versus time. I wanna see how it's growing. So I'm gonna keep this a vertical bar, but I do wanna show this, I wanna show, instead of account type, I wanna show the month, okay? And then instead of count right here, what to show, so y-axis, what to show, I'm gonna click the account balance and then sum. So that is looking good. So now you can see over time. Now I do want to move this, so I want to order them differently, right? Because I want September before October. So how you do that is you go into sort by, and then you just move September over. And so when you add another month, just make sure that they're in the right order. You probably could use one of these as well, but I just do a manual one just because it's not as smart, because it's not, it just knows it's a category. It doesn't know what September actually means. So I have a hard time believing that this will actually sort it correctly because it's just gonna sort it alphabetically, which doesn't really work. So that's just how you set it up. And then bam, you have money versus time. So now in September, October, again, you're gonna wanna add the filters. So you just add them now because you know you're gonna need them. So now you can do, just add regular filter. I don't know why this added a rule. Add a filter, and you're just gonna filter by month, and let's just, oh, you actually don't need the month one because you're gonna show month over time. So never mind, you're just gonna need the year. So we're gonna do 2024. And that'll just set you up so when you go into 2025, it's not like all jacked up. So there you go, you filter on the year, you don't need month because it's, you know, month over time. And then you can kind of watch your money grow, right? So 3 different charts. If you're on the free plan, pick which one you like the most. And then this is your source table, so it's gonna be manually entered. And again, this roughly takes me about 15 minutes once a month. So it's not that much time dedicated to get something very pretty, something that you feel in control of your money, and you don't have to pay like a crazy fee, right? For some of these apps that charge you like $10 a month so that you can look at your money. So lastly, now that we have everything set up, we're gonna talk a little bit about filtering. So we have it set up kind of on purpose so that we can filter, slice and dice things as we need. So I kind of mentioned that this table view, you're not gonna really play around in here much because it's just gonna get larger and larger, and it's just gonna have all your information, every instance, right? Every row is an instance. So what I like to do is, if I'm really curious about how an account is doing, I will filter by account type. So we didn't add any filters here because we hadn't looked at this, we were using charts. But if you wanna dig deeper, right? So if you're done looking at the charts and you're like, you know what, I really just wanna see how my 401k has increased. You're gonna add a filter on the account type, and then you can kind of see month by month, right? So you can see, okay, October it was 52,000, September it was 50,000, and then you'll have over the years all this data where you can start diving into it and being like, huh, it's not really growing as much as I thought, or, oh, that's doing really well. And you can start kind of looking and get insights on your data. So how I like to filter is, I kind of showed throughout the video, doing different account types. So, and then you can also remove these filters as well. So you can just like uncheck them and it stays there. So if you ever want to use it again, I also like to do month as well. If I really just want to look at my latest month, you can add that as well and then unclick it so you can kind of take a look. The nice thing about Notion though is you can add this calculate button on the bottom. So you can go ahead and add a calculate and do more options, sum. So if you want to see and you don't want to go into these views for some reason, you can just add this sum at the bottom. So as you filter, it will summarize it. How much money. Now, when you have it unchecked, it's gonna look like the sum doesn't make sense, right? Because that's not how much money you have. That's over a course of 2 months combined, which is just not accurate. But if you click September, you'll see the sum, or unclick it. So I leave it there, it doesn't bother me, but some people, they think it bothers them. Okay, then you can just remove it. So you can click this and just put none. But that's an option, and you can do a ton of stuff on here, depending if you want to do counts or, you know, whatever. There's all kinds of options on the calculate at the bottom. So those are the kind of the filters. You can add a type year and filter on your year as well if you really are curious. So that's pretty much how I use it. And then each one of these, just know your filter's hiding. It doesn't look like this is filtered, but it is. So, you know, if you go to October, you're like, okay, let's check out October, and then it auto updates. And again, if you go into the next year, it has that as well. So that's how I use the kind of slicing and dicing, and that's why we set up all this year and month so that it's a drop down. It's a little bit easier, right? Because again, if I were to filter on the month formula, I have to type in the whole month. What if you misspell it? And then that's like 6 different clicks to get it. And then you have to press enter. It's like, and it's not as visual. I can't switch between. So that's why I just don't recommend formulas if you're gonna use them as a filter. If you're not using them as a filter, no big deal. Add as many formulas as you want, but they're not great for filters. So hopefully this gave you an idea of how you can use Notion to kind of take charge financially of what your net worth looks like, how you can organize data, maybe give you a couple tips on, you know, the data science book if you really are into data science and you love Notion. I will also link up here a video called Die with Zero, which is a book that completely changed my relationship with money in the sense of I started to spend more on experiences because that book was talking so much about how experiences are like investments and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to check out that book, I will link it up here. I have some other finance books I will also link in the description as well. So check those out. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.